Did you know I've been a storyteller all of my life? I can remember the first story or one of the first stories I ever told. Man, it was great. My mother confronted me when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I told the biggest whopper of a story you ever heard of how I didn't break that favorite plate of hers. Man, I got off scot clean. She believed everything I said in that story. Now, it would have been fine if I hadn't bragged to my best friend, who then told who his mom told my mom, and guess what, man? I'm the one that got whopped on the behind. I love telling stories. We all tell stories. In this video, I want to dispel 3 myths about storytelling. And in doing that, I hope to encourage you to be able to share unforgettable stories for your article, for your blog, for your book, or for your YouTube video, or whatever setting that you're in. Hi, this is Old Mike, old me living better, and I believe you can live better at any age, a little better every day, 1% better every day. My motto is real simple. I got it on my sweatshirt here. If you ain't dead, you ain't done. I started my YouTube channel at 80 years old last year. Hey, if I can start a channel at 80 years old, so can you. My friend Darren Strauss says this. She says, "You are the director of your character, the director of your story." So here's myth number 1. I'm not a storyteller. That's right, I'm not a storyteller. Yes, you are. Your entire life, you've been telling stories. Maybe like me, you started off as a kid, and as you grew up, you became a teenager. You shared your stories of exploit and heartbreak. When you're at the doctor's office, the doctor says, "What's wrong with you?" Well, guess what? You're telling your story of what's wrong with you. It won't be good enough for the doctor to say, "Well, I don't feel good." Nah, you got to tell the whole story if you expect the doctor to give you a diagnosis. All through life, we are sharing our stories with our friends, with our neighbors, in every kind of situation. I tell stories every day. At the end of the day, I share with my wife what the day was like. That's telling a story, and she does the same thing with me. We're all storytellers. We just don't know it. We don't see those as stories, but those are the stories that begin to shape our life. I want you to go to my friend Darren Strauss's channel. She's a producer, director, award-winning writer, and storyteller. So, to dispel this myth that you're not a storyteller, I want you to watch some of her videos. She's got some of the best videos on helping you to share a story, helping you to understand how stories fit into things, how easy it is to tell your story. I love her channel. I love her. She's a great person, a great teacher. Go to her channel, subscribe to the channel, watch some of those videos. You won't be disappointed. So myth number 2 is, I can't come up with a story. Oh, come on. Yes, you can. So here's part of the problem. Neuroscience, some of the research I've read, says that 80% of our being is in the unconscious. We're only using 20% that we can remember or think about at any one time. So it could be that our best stories are hidden in the unconscious. Somebody asked me, "What's your favorite story?" Well, I got to think for a while because it's not in the top 20% of my thinking or my mind at that time. So how do I get those stories to come up into my mind? I'm going to give you 2 ways that I've used to trigger stories in my life, in my articles, in my speaking, and in my YouTube videos. So here's a hint. Here's my family. They came out last year when I turned 80 years old. Guess what we're doing? We're gathered around hundreds, and I mean maybe thousands of photographs. We had not been together for maybe 4 or 5 years, the entire family. This is a portion of the family. And we're sitting around and we are looking at photographs. The people that are in this photo, a lot of them, their baby pictures are in all these photos we're looking at. And I got to tell you, we literally spent hours not just looking at photos, it was the story behind the photo. These photos brought out so many stories. Whoa, look at this, Dad. And off goes the story. Wow, look at this. And off goes the story. Photographs trigger memories and stories. So, in my video on inspiration, I was kind of stuck for a story to illustrate that. I will put a link in the description below so you can watch that video, and I'll link it at the very end also. So I sat down at that, just like my family did. I started going through some photographs. Here's the photo I found that I started to think about. This is me when I'm maybe, I don't know, 30 years old, and that's Barry McGuire, who was part of the Christie Minstrels. Some of you remember the song Eve of Destruction. Barry stayed in my house for a weekend. We jammed together. He was my idol at the time as a singer. I'm looking at that photo. Remember, I'm thinking about a illustration, a story that would fit with my video on inspiration. All of a sudden, after looking at that photo, I remembered an event in my life. When I was 17 years old, I walked into McCabe's guitar shop in Long Beach, California, and there sitting on a Saturday in a jam session was Hoyt Axton. He was another one of my heroes. He was playing at the Golden Bear in Huntington Beach. And as I share my story about that, I share how Hoyt turned to me and said, "Get in this circle, get in the jam session." That inspiration set off in me a wonderful thing that has lasted all of my life, related to the guitar. So, where did that story come from? I was fishing for a story. I couldn't find a story for the life of me that I could use in that video that would fit with the topic of the video. I went to my photo album, and there it was. I went down into the unconscious part of my thinking. Now, here's the other way. So, a lot of you have heard me talk about my Plod voice recorder. I'm going to do a review of this in the Plod note pen in the future. But I'm never without this recorder. Well, I've never been without a recorder since I was, maybe 30 years old. I've been making voice memos and putting those into my journal, 50 years or more. Why is that important? Because wherever I am, I want to capture the inspiration of that moment. There's a story in that moment. I'm going to say 40 to 50% of the stories that come to my mind that I use in my videos, I use in my speeches, I use in my articles, come from dictating into my recording device. And you can use your iPhone or your telephone, you can use your smartphone, whatever recording device you have. But you don't want to have those ideas, those stories go in one ear and out the other. You have to have a way to organize them. So the two most important things in my life where I have a resource for stories, one are my photo albums, the other is the recordings that I make on my recorder. So what about you? How do you come up with your ideas for stories? Share with me in the comments below. Let me know. Where do your story ideas come from? Do you write them down when they come from? Do you put them in a voice recorder? Let me know, okay? So here's myth number 3. Nobody cares about my story. Nobody cares about my story. Well, you've already seen my family. They love my stories. I love their stories because stories reveal things about us. They they open they're a window to our soul. They're like light to the topic that you're talking about. Stories are wonderful. So, yeah, nobody's going to care about your story if you never tell it. But you've got to be able to tell it. Did you know there's an entire industry? There's a real movement on storytelling. I encourage you to get the book, actually get the audible version of the book that is called How to Tell a Story. And it's done by the blog or the group called The Moth. And the reason you want to get the audible version of this book is because there's dozens of people in the book that are telling their stories and how to tell a story. The process of what the moth presenters go through before they get on stage and they tell their story is pretty fascinating. You'll learn a lot about storytelling by just reading that book. Go to Darren Strauss's channel. I'll have a link in the description below to her channel. I have a link for the book also. I have put a link to the book and to the audio, but I recommend you let's get the audio. I love this book. You get a sense of what it's like to tell a story. And the neat thing is, one of the requirements is you can't use notes. You can't use notes when you stand up in front of a large group of people and you're going to tell your story. Now, wouldn't it be crazy if at my family gathering we're all around and we're looking at photos and one of my family members, I remember when, and then they pull out a note card and they're reading off the note card. It doesn't work that way. Now, you may write the story down, but when you tell the story, you're not going to be reading from a script. That's the wonderful thing about stories. A lot of people, when they're doing YouTube videos, they struggle with writing a script. You need to learn to tell your story without a script. That's where it comes from the heart. That's where the emotion and the passion of that story comes in. And it makes whatever topic you're sharing, you become someone who people believe in. When you tell an unforgettable story, you're convincing people of the topic that you're sharing. At least I hope you are. So who else cares about your story? If you don't get anything else out of this video, get this. Your family cares about your story. Oh, you may think they don't, but I got to tell you, they do. Now, most of you know I've been working with seniors for the last 35 years or so. And a couple of years ago, I had a whole project with the seniors that I work with to write their story. And I'm going to share, and you can get it in the description below, to a group called the Family Search Blog. And they have, and I'll link right to it, they have 52 prompts so that you can spend 1 week writing on every single one of these prompts. And you'll be able to write your entire life story in a whole year, in 52 weeks. I think we started off with maybe 40 people on the project, and then maybe 15 or 20 got all the way through it, writing their entire life story. Those are treasures. Write your story, tell your story. Storytelling is the fabric of life. Now, I don't know what language the cavemen spoke, but I can just imagine them sitting around the fire. Hey, Ralph, what did you do? Well, I saw this mastodon today, and they're telling stories. They're telling stories. Sit around the campfire today with family and friends, you're telling stories. Get together with family and friends at a restaurant, you're telling stories. You go to the doctor, you're telling a story. You stand before a judge, he wants to hear your story. Storytelling is the fabric of life. And I know inside of you, you have unforgettable stories that people want to hear. So, what's your story? itching. So, what's your story? Would you believe it? I had a Marine Corps drill instructor ask me this question. I think I've been in boot camp for 1 or 2 days. I got through the part where they shave your head, they line you up in the platoon, they give you clothes that don't fit, shoes that don't fit. Oh man, you feel really lost, And we're all standing in formation in platoon, and I had a drill instructor walk up to me and shout in my ear, "What's your story, Private?" Well, you weren't allowed to. There was a certain way you could reply, and you had to say, "Sir, I don't know, sir." You start your sentence with "sir" and end it with "sir." So that's what I said, "Sir, I don't know, sir." He said, and the drill instructor said, "Yes, you do. You saw the poster. You saw the poster, Marine Corps Makes Men." So he shouted in my ear, "You saw the poster, didn't you? The Marine Corps Makes Men. Well, it won't do you any good. We got to have something to start with first." That was my introduction to the Marine Corps. See, that's another story. The stories just roll out of us. Some of them are fun, some of them are sad, some of them are tragic. So, what's your story? Do you have a story? When it comes up, write it down. Look through your photo album. Look through other treasures. You can actually walk around the house. Most of you know, some of you have seen bits and pieces of my house, all the knickknacks. I got to tell you, my mother used to be able to pick up a teacup. She could tell a 20-minute story around that one teacup, how she got it. Stories, they're part of our life. They're unforgettable. Now, they might not be unforgettable for everybody. But if you learn how to weave them into your book, into your article, into your speech, into your YouTube channel, you will do wonders in communicating the real life. And that's what people want. They want real life. They want real experience. They want to hear from you from your heart, and the stories in your life reveal your heart. So this is old Mike, old me, living better. If you want to join my email list, I encourage you to do that. You'll find that down in the description. I've got a link to buy me coffee if you want to support the channel. But most of all, I hope that the story that's inside of you would come flowing out. I'm leaving a link. I think it's up here or up there somewhere to my video on inspiration. I'm also going to leave a link to the video on my adoption story. That's an example of a video that I did the entire video telling my story of being adopted. And it was based on something my mother said to me, my birth mother, after I searched for her and found her. And she said, "Michael, you're not a mistake. I made a mistake, but you're not a mistake." And that's the title of the video. But if you want to see a video that has the story is the whole video, you can go watch that one. Hey, I hope to see you next time. I hope you live your story and you tell your story. Old Mike, old me, living better. If you ain't dead, you ain't done. See you later.